back. James Harden right on target. Bang, bang, George Niang to Paul Reed from Tyrese Maxey.
Joel
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Pick Swap Media's YouTube channel. Here we got me and Ryan today breaking down some Eastern Conference rankings. The NBA season is just around the corner. Got preseason kicking off all over the place, so excited for my favorite time of year. Ryan, how you doing today?
Good. It's good to get back talking some hoops again. You and I are going to be doing some college stuff coming up as well, so excited for that as we've been doing a lot of football stuff here, and the Eagles 4-0 now, so exciting times here in Philly. Let's see if Phillies can potentially clinch a playoff spot tonight as well, or this week, or they'll probably collapse again. But then we got Sixers too coming up, so excited to get into some NBA talk today.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's the busy time of year, the prime time for everything. So we're going to do just straight up Eastern Conference rankings today, go 8 through 1, talk a little bit about each team and get right into it. So if we want to get going, Ryan, you want to start off with your number 8 team?
Yeah, so how I did mine was I don't exactly think this is how it's going to be like standings-wise come May or whenever the playoffs start up, April, but kind of the 8 teams I think that have the best chance to win the title in the East. So my 8th team, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bulls. Just really rock-solid team across the board. Just a really solid collection of good players. And this is a team I could see finishing as high as 4th or 5th in the Eastern Conference, but Lonzo's knee is worrisome for me. They were a totally different team with him in the lineup last year. And I saw someone on Twitter the other day. He said like he can't run or jump right now. So with the season coming up in a few weeks, that doesn't sound like something very, very promising for the Bulls starting point guard, who I've never really been that big of a fan of, but he's really kind of turned around his career since he got to Chicago. Levine is another guy who's really battled health injuries throughout his career as well. He could be a 25 point per game type of guy, but also he could miss 40, 50 games in a year. He's that type of player where he's so like explosive and stuff. I think it's almost not for his own good at sometimes. Like he's just too explosive for his own body. Have a deep backcourt though. Looking through their depth chart today, got Goran Dragic in there now, real solid force. Ayo Dosunmu is a guy I liked a lot coming out last year. He had a nice rookie year. Colby White has turned into a pretty solid player, going to get you like 15 a game, probably coming off the bench. So there's some good pieces there. And then you have Patrick Williams in the front court, who's still a raw prospect, but has flashed some. Nikola Vucevic, one of the more underrated players annually in the league. And then obviously Demar Derozan, the main headliner there. He had a really nice season last year with Chicago. Just super solid players, but like I said, with the health concerns, as well as not really having that legit number one, like top 15 type player in the NBA, I think that kind of limits this team's ceiling. So that's why I got them slotted in at number 8.
Yeah, I love that pick. I love what the Bulls are building. For me personally, and this is more of a testament to just how deep the East is than the Bulls specifically, I personally will be rooting for the Bulls this year, but I have them outside my top 8. I have them through in a couple honorable mentions. Just the Knicks, Hornets, Wizards, and Bulls were all guys I have on the outside looking in. It really is a deep Eastern Conference. The injury to Lonzo is what kind of did it for me. As much as he's not like the statistical light up the stat sheet guy, he very much has become like a glue guy in the NBA that really just contributes to winning in a major way. So him being out, and it doesn't sound like there's in there's immediate plans for him to make his return. At least it seems pretty up in the air. So I have them on the outside looking in, but I would love it if the Bulls exceed that. For my number 8, I have the Atlanta Hawks. Went 43-39 last year. Kind of underperformed after they obviously had the beating the Sixers in the second round of the playoffs the year before. Added DeJounte Murray this offseason. I love the prospect of having another ball handler, a guy to take it out of Trey Young's hands a little bit. And as much as Trey Young will still be the featured piece of that team, just having another option I think is going to help a lot. They need kind of a defensive leap. This stat here, they ranked 2nd in offensive efficiency and 26th in defensive efficiency last year. They're the only team in the NFL or in the NBA to have that much of a differential. So pretty crazy stuff there. They need a little bit of a leap from Onyeka Okongwu in the front court to kind of protect the paint is what I think the real swing factor is for this team. But I do think the Murray and Young backcourt, it's going to take a little bit to build, but I like the prospect of what that could be.
Yeah, before I get into my number 7 team, like you said, you had a few honorable mentions. One team that I was surprised I had on the outside looking in was the Hornets. I think they're a team that could surprise, maybe be like the 6th or 7th best team in the East this year. They just have a lot of really intriguing athletes. The thing with them is the Miles Bridges situation. I'm not sure really what's going on there, so that's kind of why I had them on the outside. I don't have the Hawks at 7. I have them a little bit higher. My 7th team, I'm going to go with the Heat. Kind of like I said at the beginning with my take on this isn't exactly the standings I'm expecting come playoff time, but just kind of where I think these teams could finish up in the season. I think the Heat will probably wind up being like the 2nd or 3rd seed just because defense, coaching, and just effort alone, they're just like built to be that really good regular season team that kind of sets up for disappointment come playoff time. I'm just not a big believer in the roster as a whole. When your best player is Jimmy Butler, who definitely a big fan of, but he might not even be a top 15 player in the league. I think you could argue he's kind of between that 15 and 20 range. You're going to struggle, I think, to win a championship. And that's just facts. That's just what we've seen out of the NBA the past decade or so. Then when your 2nd through 4 options are Kyle Lowry, who's a kind of a shell of himself now, Tyler Hero, who's up and down a lot, and Bam Adebayo, I just don't really see this team competing for a title. Like I said, I probably are going to finish like a top 3 or 4 team in the East just based off of that defensive ability, their effort, having great coaching as well. But come playoff time, they don't have enough scoring, in my opinion, to reach that next level. A player I'm interested to see with this team, though, this year and see if he gets kind of more expanded role with some better health is Victor Oladipo. Because if he can return to his old self or even 80% of what he was in those few really good years that he had with Indiana, I could see him maybe taking this team to the next level and giving them that extra scoring boost. But when he's right, he's a really good explosive player, but he just hasn't really been that. So that's a major question mark. Just too many question marks on this team for me to really rank them higher than this.
Yeah, I also have the Heat number 7 in my rankings. The loss of PJ Tucker, I think, is more notable than people are giving credit. And Tucker is not a guy, once again, that's going to light up the stat sheet, but just the way that defensively he's versatile, can defend multiple positions, slide out, space the floor properly, and just contributes to winning in the way that he does, and just an every year basis. I think it's going to be something the Heat miss in a major way. They really didn't gain anybody notable this offseason. They paid Tyler Hero. They ranked 4th in the NBA in defense last year, best defense against top 10 teams in the NBA, which is impressive. Kind of what you said, like so much of their style is built around just like will to win and Heat culture and everything that comes with it. And Jimmy Butler deserves a ton of credit for really just carrying that team through the playoffs. Like they're a shot away from going to the finals last year, and they're still going to be in contention just based on what their identity is as a team. But I just think they lack the top end talent to be higher than that.
Yeah, so we'll go into my 6th place team now. That's who you had as your 8th team, and that's the Atlanta Hawks. Another team that went out and made a big splash trade this offseason, acquiring DeJounte Murray to go with Trey. You said you're kind of worried about that fit, at least at the beginning. I like the pairing. Just shooting-wise, I think Trey is such a dynamic player and outside scorer. When you have a guy like DeJounte Murray who can create and then be elite on the defensive end to take kind of Trey's inability to defend traffic cone out there, that's a good pairing for me, just to work off of each other. I just love that fit. I think it masks a lot of the defensive efficiencies that Trey has. Murray's another really good creator and a really good rebounder as well. I think I saw the average or close to like a little over 9 rebounds a game last year. So that's going to let Trey focus on just being the scorer, the shooter, and the main creator on that offense. He's not really going to have to be tasked to do much on the defensive end or rebounding the ball as well. So with all his energy just solely focused on offense, I think that's a big plus for him. And I think losing Kevin Huerter, that hurts. I really like him. I think his ability to be just one of those knockdown shooters and play off of DeJounte or Trey Murray and be a microwave kind of scoring option, a guy who can get hot in a hurry off the bench, I think that's a big loss. One guy that I'm really high on, though, coming into this year, I think he's in for a breakout season. He's flashed ability from time to time, but injuries have kind of slowed him down a little bit. That's Deandre Hunter. I think he can be one of the better 3-and-D guys in the league, average like 18 points a game, maybe shoot around close to 39-40%. I think he has a nice year this year. Another guy working off of Trey Young and DeJounte Murray, just being able to sometimes sit in the corner and just knock down threes. That could be one of the bigger assets for this team. So Bogdanovic, really athletic front court duo with Clint Capella, John Collins. I do want to see a bigger leap from Okamlu, but I think he's a guy who's still a raw player. I think only about 21 years old, so still time to grow for him. But this Hawks team, I think, is going to be exciting. Maybe add some more outside shooting. That could be one of the things I think that they look to do to improve the roster, though.
Yeah, and I agree overall. I think the Hawks have kind of slid a little bit unnoticed because of the disappointing season last year. And the main guy that has kind of surprised me, the narrative of him, is Trey Young. I think Trey Young is a legitimate like grade A guy that can be a best player on a championship team. It's the rest of the roster that I'm a little bit concerned of defensively specifically. I would like for them to add they're a team I think should be in the mix for a Jay Crowder trade. I think that's a guy that like would elevate them in a major way and that kind of thing. But I do like what the Hawks are building there, and agree there's reason for optimism. To slide to my number 6 team, I have the Toronto Raptors here. 48-34 last year. They're bringing back 96% of the player minutes last year of the players that played. Pretty much just the most just continuity among the NBA, which I think does matter. I believe in a Scotty Barnes continuing to grow. I believe in the culture they're building, just how versatile, how switchable. They're going to be a scary team in the near future, and I think they're going to surprise some teams this year. Another stat that impressed me with them is they committed 3.4 fewer turnovers per game than their opponents last year. They added Otto Porter in the offseason. I think that's a nice, good floor spacing guy that is a little bit shade different than their typical players. But just kind of the culture that they've established, the switchability, they really have embraced positionless basketball, and I think it's going to pay off in the long run and that they're going to be in the mix this year.
Yeah, I was surprised. I actually had the Raptors on the outside looking in. I don't have them in my top 8. Like you said at the beginning, Sean, just this Eastern Conference this year is super deep. I mean, a few injuries on some teams. You could see some teams, potentially even Philadelphia. You get a significant injury to an Embiid and a Harden, they could be on the outside looking in. This is a really good conference this year, I think, and kind of you can make an argument for probably 10 to 11 different teams to make the playoffs out of this bunch.
Yeah.
My 5th team, though, I think this is going to be one of the more exciting teams in not just the Eastern Conference, but the NBA going forward. That's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Just like with the Hawks, I think they went out and kind of made that big splash trade going out and acquiring Donovan Mitchell to pair with Darius Garland in the backcourt for the foreseeable future. They're going to be great offensively together. That's going to be a fun kind of duo to watch work together, but definitely worried about the defense, especially with Ricky Rubio as like your main backup point guard. Those are 3 guys who I think are going to get picked on, and this defense might not be one of the better groupings in the league, but they don't have to be that great. I think they kind of just have to find a way to hold their own, as when you have Evan Mobley and Jared Allen behind you, guys to be able to protect the rim and play high-level defense, and then guys like Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert on the wings. You got some good pieces there. So the backcourt just kind of has to hold their own on defense, but really dominate on offense for this team. This team should be exciting, play a fun brand of ball, get up and down the floor. Concern for me, though, is the bench scoring and consistent shooters. Certainly a team I think that could look to add more off the bench. Another team that should be, like you said, in the mix for maybe a Jay Crowder. Some of the guys coming off the bench like Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens, just not a very deep group off the bench. And another one where, all right, Donovan Mitchell suffers a significant injury, Darius Garland a significant injury. I think that team's going to struggle because they don't have much good depth behind them. So I think they should be really fun to watch. I think maybe take some bumps and bruises in the early goings as they try to kind of allocate roles on this roster. But I think the Cavs are going to be a fun team this year.
Yeah, totally agree. I have the Cavs as my number 5 team as well. Coming off a 44-38 year, obviously the addition of Mitchell. I think there's a lot of parallels between them and the Hawks when you look at kind of the roster construction, what they're trying to do. The thing that gives me more hope with the Cavs is having Evan Mobley and Jared Allen behind them. I really do believe Evan Mobley has a chance to be a generational defender just in the way that he can guard on the perimeter, protect the paint, the way he uses his long arms, the way he can move his feet. That's super impressive stuff, and that makes a major difference behind 2 guards who are going to be a little bit of defensive liabilities, Donovan Mitchell specifically. I mean, Darius Garland, when you watch this team play last year, I love Darius Garland. I think he's phenomenal, but he just had too much on his shoulders last year. Like, there were possessions, it was pretty much like Garland or nothing that he could do. And I think in his nature, he's more of a pass-first player. I think he's a guy who can certainly fill up the scoring sheet, but he would like to set others up. But I think having Donovan Mitchell will allow him to get back to a more natural version of himself. So I love what they're building there. I love the backcourt. I think the Cavs are going to be one of the more fun teams to watch in the NBA. And I really do have high hopes that they're going to make a decent playoff push this year. So I have them as my number 5.
Yeah, definitely ambitious on them. I think all goes well. They're a team that you could see really make some noise. So we go to my 4th team now. This is where I slot in the Sixers. I have them as the 4th team. Gonna talk a little bit more in depth about these guys, obviously, than some of the other teams. But my big thing since the Joel Embiid kind of stardom has started is, when is the last time a team won a championship with their big man as the best player? That's the main critique for me. That's been it. And until it happens, I think I'm just going to continue to ride that take. Looking back at the past champions, I think you could say maybe 2014 with Tim Duncan and the Spurs was the last time that the big man was the best player on a championship team. He's awesome, no doubt about that. You can't argue that. But when the game's on the line, more times than not, you're going to need your guard to go out and make you a play. And that's what I've been saying for years now. That's why I was so high on going out and getting James Harden. Obviously, that didn't work out last year. Injuries, I think, played a major role in it. He looks a lot better. He says he's in better shape, but still, he was more of a shell of himself scoring last year. So I'm going to need to see more out of him this year. But he now appears to be in better shape, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. I expect Tyrese Maxey to take another leap. I think his confidence just grows by the day, and he's just going to continue to improve. I think the biggest piece on this team to getting over that hump of making it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals could be Tobias Harris, though. As the fourth option on this team, defenses aren't going to be throwing much at him. He's going to be kind of, I think, the guy that teams are like, all right, if Tobias Harris beats us, that's that. I mean, he's going to be getting a lot of open and clean looks. Since he came to Philadelphia, his best three-point shooting season was back in 2020. He shot it at 39%. If he can shoot between 39, 41% and make just those open threes, I feel like he time and time again consistently gets those like open threes from the wing. He needs to be able to consistently knock those down for this team to be as dangerous as they can. I like the depth of this team, though. That's been the major focus of the offseason, adding guys in that department. PJ Tucker, Donnell House, DeAnthony Melton. You got some Matisse Thybulle who can still do some stuff for you as well. I'm also a little concerned about the point guard spot behind Maxey and Harden. If one of those guys misses time, they don't really have much that I think a guy who could go out there and play, 25, 30 minutes a game, maybe like Shake Milton, but still, I think that's a spot that they might look to improve as the year goes on. If they're not kind of happy with some of the young guys on the team, see if Springer maybe takes that leap, but I'm hoping they prove me wrong. I'm just not really buying that much stock into this team until they kind of prove otherwise. You can make all the changes and moves that you want, but your best player needs to play really good down the stretch. And I think that you can't really argue that in the big moments, kind of Embiid has been hurt. He hasn't been able to really dominate down the stretch. So I'm excited for this year. I'm excited to see what happens. But anything less than the Eastern Conference Finals, I think you could see a Doc Rivers being gone and major shakeups across the roster.
Yeah, all great points there. I'll slide into my full spiel on the Sixers when I get to them on my list. For my number 4, I have the Celtics slotted there. And I've been pretty consistent throughout this offseason having the Celtics as my number 1 on this list. The Ime Udoka thing definitely changes things in my mind because I do think he's a terrific head coach. Obviously suspended for a year. Still kind of stuff coming out, the full clarity on that situation. Very bizarre how this all has kind of come about and released, and just the process of the news breaking on this has been pretty strange. So there's definitely some legal stuff going on behind the scenes that I think we'll have clarity on soon. But the bottom line is he won't be the head coach next year. He deserves a ton of credit for turning that team around. People forget that like halfway through last year, we were talking about like Jaylen Brown being traded, the Celtics team not well put together, and to just flip that on its head, go all the way to the Eastern Conference or go to the NBA Finals, is extremely impressive. I think the addition of Malcolm Brogdon is huge. Tatum and Brown are still super young. I love Robert Williams. I think he's a great postseason big man. I love a lot of what the Celtics do, but I think the coaching stuff is just going to be a little bit too big of a hurdle to clear come postseason. So I have dropped them from 1 to 4 on my list, but I do really like the roster, and I think they're a team we shouldn't fully count out.
Yeah, I'll get to the Celtics in a little bit. I got them a little bit higher than you. My third team is going to be the Brooklyn Nets. Pains me to say that, but I want to say I can't trust this team, but they're just too talented at the end of the day. As much as I hate Ben Simmons, he doesn't need to be that scorer here that we kind of always wanted him to find a way to be in Philadelphia. He doesn't need to do that. He just needs to do what he does well, which is rebound, play defense, and distribute the ball. And I think he's a great piece for them because he could play, like you just said with Robert Williams, is a really good postseason big man. Ben Simmons at 6'10", 6'11", whatever he measures in at, could play like the 5 for them in the fourth quarter. Rebound the ball, push it himself. He just gives this team some more options than before. I'm a little worried about their front court, like overall just beef and muscle and just strength, just because Claxton is a really nice athlete, got really good length, but a real skinny guy who guards, Joel Embiid, Vucevic, Bam. I mean, those guys are going to be able to kind of bully Claxton as we've seen in the past. Obviously, you can't get past Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving there together too. I think the starting 5 going into the year, I'm not sure if this has been kind of announced by Steve Nash yet, but I think it'll be Kyrie, Seth, KD, Ben, and Claxton. That allows you to bring Joe Harris off the bench, one of the better shooters in the league, who missed, I believe, all, if not most, of last season. Kessler Edwards had a nice rookie year out of Pepperdine. Patty Mills comes off the bench as well. Going to be one of the more fascinating watches in the league. 3 of the more intriguing and kind of unique personalities, I think you could say, with Simmons, KD, and Kyrie. They could completely blow up and find themselves out of the playoffs, or be the best team in the league. This team has as high of a ceiling and as low as a floor, I think, as any group in the league this year. So we'll see how this whole new dynamic works for them. How KD wanted to get traded this offseason. Just drama with this group. But when they're healthy and I think playing good basketball together, they can be the best team in the East. So major question marks surrounding the Nets, but just too much talent to have them anywhere below 3, in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree. I also have the Nets as my number 3 team, coming off a disappointing year where they went 44-38. Through the 3 years that Durant and Irving have been on the Nets, they've played a total of just 58 games together, which is just absolutely absurd considering that. We're going to see our first peek at Ben Simmons actually getting on the court in preseason tonight, so that'll be interesting. I like the addition of Royce O'Neal. I like the addition of TJ Warren. I both think those were bargain contracts and guys that contribute to a winning team. I kind of am buying the Kyrie Irving stock more than anything with this team. That's kind of the swing factor with me. The COVID stuff is all over. Like, he's going to be able to play full time. And he's also, as much as Kyrie is like a weirdo and does his own thing, I think he's aware enough to understand, like, he's going to be on a contract year. He's going to be looking for that max deal going into next year. He's going to like have his act together to an extent. And it's never been a question of talent for Kyrie. It's always been like how bought in he is. And I think for this year specifically, I think he can swallow it, be bought in. As far as the Simmons stuff, I agree. This is going to be a much more natural role for him. Like, just being able to be an assist man for Kyrie and KD. The part where I do disagree on kind of the national narrative with Simmons as a 5, I just think he lacks like the physicality. I don't think he can really be a big man. I think he gets compared to Draymond Green all the time. I think Simmons is a better perimeter defender than Draymond Green, but he lacks all the physicality, the defensive instincts, the rim protection that Draymond can bring. So I think in the postseason, that's going to be an issue. I just don't see him matching up with a true big man. Even a guy like Bam Adebayo, who oftentimes gets bullied by matchups with Embiid, with kind of the bigger guys. Like, I think Bam would give Simmons the work if they're in a one-on-one matchup down low, especially. So I don't see the full solution as him as the 5, but I kind of agree with your whole sentiment. There's just too much talent here. And I think like it'll take some time, but they're going to find a way to gel together.
Yeah, the 5, I think, is the biggest question mark with this team. Obviously, I don't think Simmons will be like the 5 full-time, but
Yeah.
that, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, okay, we can have him out there. But if you do get into a situation where it would be pretty cool to see Nets Sixers in a playoff game and Embiid down the stretch just kind of torching Simmons in the post, that would be a fun watch. But a team that, like the Nets, that's all in, I think that they go out and find a way to maybe improve that 5 position at some point during the season and, just get a guy who can be a minutes eater, just go out there, get you rebounds and stuff like that. They don't need a scoring center. They just need like a tough-nosed guy who just has some pure strength, I think, to his game. We'll get to my second team now. That's where I have the Celtics slotted in. Not really going to talk much on the coaching situation, as you kind of hit on that, but that's just the major story around this team. The new head coach, Joe Mazzulla, I think I saw back in 2017, he was a Division II head coach. So this is like a huge jump. Kind of relating it to the NFL, Brandon Staley was a coach at Division III, like a Division III defensive coordinator, I believe, back in 2017, and now he's an NFL head coach, and he seems to be a bit over his head at times. I think the Celtics are definitely going to have a lot of kind of learning moments in the early season with this new coach. But this team went to the finals last year, as you touched on. Jason Tatum, a flat-out stud. Jaylen Brown, a very good number 2 option. And they have a lot of options in this backcourt with Marcus Smart, acquired Malcolm Brogdon, and a really nice backup player in Peyton Pritchard, who just does a little bit of everything for the team. I'm really high on Robert Williams. I really liked him coming out of the draft. Just his overall athletic ability and just his energy that he can bring to a team, guard in multiple spots. That's something that really needs to be accounted for, especially come the playoffs. We've seen guys like Rudy Gobert be a defensive player of the year in the regular season, all NBA type guy, and then he just kind of gets bullied off the floor by Luka Doncic. So Horford, another guy, just solid as can be when he's with anyone but the Philadelphia 76ers. There's nothing really to nitpick at here with this team. Maybe their outside shooting I'm a little bit concerned with. They went out and acquired Gallinari, but as we know, he's out for the year with that ACL injury. So I think this is a team that could look to improve that outside shooting a little bit. Derek White was a nice pickup last year. But just more so of a guy like the Nets have with a Joe Harris or a Seth Curry, just someone who can go in there and shoot 42% for you or something from three and knock down a couple open looks per game. I think that's something that this team's going to have to improve on.
Yeah, definitely, totally fair. And I am still super optimistic about the Celtics. I also saw them looking at Peyton Pritchard sliding him into more of just a shooter's role this year with the addition of Brogdon. He's been a 40% three-point guy in his NBA so far. So that's something that intrigues me if they have some flexibility there. But yeah, I like the team overall. Number 2 is where I have the Sixers, and I've had them third throughout the offseason. The Celtics just kind of dipped below and gave them the leg up. Went 51-31 last year. To your point about Embiid, the big men being the best players, I think that's valid to an extent. It's just like you have to be able to combat it. Like there's things you can do when an opposing team's big man is the best player to prevent it that you can't with guards in terms of like fronting him in the post, preventing the ball from even getting to him, that type of thing. And the thing the Sixers have lacked is having like the necessary tools around him to make sure that's not the case. Having guys like PJ Tucker to space the floor so you can't double off him. And that's what I really think they've gone out and addressed this offseason. They got Tucker, they got DeAnthony Melton, they got Daniel House. They've got these pieces that just kind of fit in better than we've seen in the past. I think Melton is going to make a major difference just as in the guard. I think him slotting is like the third guy within the Maxey and Harden rotation is going to be awesome. He can do a little bit of everything, and defensively, he's going to be a pest. He's a much better defender than I think people are giving him credit. This is the Sixers have just lacked like the supporting cast in so many years past is what I've boiled it down to, and I think they solved that this year. So it definitely is a little bit of a make or break year for a lot of guys. For James Harden specifically, for Doc Rivers for sure, for Joel Embiid, even as far as the legacy, if he can be that guy. But I think that this team is now kind of the shut up or put up year, and I'm excited to see it on the court.
Yeah, I definitely excited to kind of see them get going. I love them on opening night against the Celtics, though.
Yeah.
But I really think, I mean, this could be a hot take, but I think if you don't have that playoff success this year, that like Embiid, I'm not saying you should trade him, but you shouldn't just hang up the phone if someone comes calling, because I think it's the sayings like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. And that's really what we would be doing. I know that they're trying different angles and stuff, but at the end of the day, it might just not be working. It might not be what's best. But in Eastern Conference Finals berth, I think is the kind of basement for what you should be expecting from this team this year. There's just too much talent and good star type players on that team for it to be anything less than that.
Yeah, and real quick to that point, like the postseason success with Embiid, he's only had 1 year with a non-Ben Simmons duo. Like seeing another year with Harden, who's a guy, even this version of James Harden is a significantly better fit than him and Ben Simmons ever was. Just a guy that like even being just respected at the three-point line and avoiding the spacing issue. Spacing has been like the main issue and such a problem year after year. So having a guy that just demands a little bit more defensive respect, I think it's a little bit of like a clean slate for judgment because of that. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but definitely a lot on the line this year for sure.
Yeah, but like you said, put up or shut up time for this team. So let's hope that they put up. My number 1 team, obviously haven't touched on these guys yet. That's going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. Another one of my takes a few years ago. He was getting too much hype, I think, early in his career, but I did see the potential still there. I said that I thought Giannis was one of the more overrated kind of athletes at the time in the entire world. Just everyone was on him, and that's before he had any of that playoff success. But obviously, I'm willing to eat those words. I'm a huge believer in him now as he's just continued to get better, and he's just got that dynamic personality where it's hard like kind of not to root for him. Definitely the best player in the Eastern Conference in my eyes, probably even the NBA. I've always been a LeBron guy, but he's kind of not slowed down really, but still Giannis might have eclipsed him, I think you could say. If Middleton doesn't get hurt last year, everything in sports is really just comes down to ifs most of the time. But if he didn't get hurt last year, I think that they go back to the finals. Drew Holiday, just an awesome fit on that team, on that roster, able to shoot, distribute, defend. Just a real deep roster with guys like Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez, Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton. Going out and getting Joe Ingles, that's a nice pickup as well. I didn't even realize that they had him till earlier today. Wes Matthews, they all play strong roles on this team. And this is a big thing around like draft time, but this is what people talk about a lot. And the NBA is a league just full of role players. And once you get kind of past your top like 3 guys in your rotation, where you look at Giannis, Middleton, and Drew Holiday, I think the Bucks have the best overall collection of role players to go with them. So I think that makes them the toughest team in the East, having the best player as well as two really good sidekick options and the best collection of role players. I think it's going to be hard to take them down this year, barring a major injury to Giannis.
Yeah, I have the Bucks as my number one as well. Like you said about last year, like if Middleton doesn't get hurt, it's a whole different story. And for sure, it's hard to just pin it to that. But I don't know, things happen. They added Marjan Beauchamp in the draft, who I like. I think it's gonna be a very good fit there as a cutter and off ball guy, defensive, very good defender. Joe Ingles, another great floor spacer. Brought back Bobby Portis, brought back Wes Matthews, brought back Serge Ibaka, and Giannis is just that guy. I think the Bucks have done a terrific job of finding guys to optimize his skill set, which is a hard task for a player. As great as he is, he's not the easiest guy to find fits with, and they've done a great job of it. So kind of what we talked about with the Sixers, like not quite doing that with Embiid. I think the Bucks deserve a ton of credit for that. They've obviously done it before, and I have a lot of faith in them this year as well. So I also have them as my number one team in the Eastern Conference heading into it. They just kind of check all the boxes for me defensively. Giannis is once again just that guy. I wouldn't be shocked if there's another MVP push for Giannis this year. He's got everything he needs, and he really is that level. So I'm excited. It's going to be competitive Eastern Conference, but I do have the Bucks at the top as well.
Yeah, like we've kind of touched on throughout. I could see this conference going a lot of different ways. Wouldn't surprise me to see a team like the Hawks or the Cavs up around that 2 or 3 slot. A team like the Miami Heat maybe fall all the way down to 7 or 8. It's just going to be a pretty wild conference, and I don't really think there's a clear-cut best team. I would put the Bucks a little bit above everyone else, but still, I don't see them, winning the conference by like 10 games this year or something. I think it's going to be a pretty close race for seeds between 2 and 8, and then the Bucks maybe win it by like 5 games or something.
Yeah, it's going to be a competitive Eastern Conference this year, so I'm excited to see how things shake out. It definitely feels like the tides have swung from the West to the East as far as strength. This offseason, even dating back a little before that, so it's going to be fun. Basketball right around the corner, so thank all you guys for tuning in, checking this out. We'll be back with some more NBA college basketball content as hoop season gets here, so make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will talk with you next time.